So this is Steve Dodge, Assistant City Engineer. I think we'll get started, and I'll have Emma from Kinley Horn just explain how to participate in the Q&A towards the end of this presentation.
Yeah, Steve, I can go ahead and walk through that for people. So my name is Luke Morin with Kimley Horn and Associates. We are the engineering firm that has been hired by the city to do the design and engineering on this project. Just a couple of things as we go through the presentation. Steve is going to run through the slides. Certainly, if questions come to mind as you are watching, feel free to go ahead and type that in and submit that at that time. There's a like the slide you should see up on the screen says you can click ask a question button, which is in the lower right corner of your window. That will submit a question to us, and then we'll be able to log that. And again, you can do that anytime during the presentation. You don't need to wait at the end. If you are on a mobile version of Teams, the Q&A button is up in the upper right side of the screen instead of the lower right, but it's the same process. Just click that button and type in your question. There are just a couple things to note. If you do click on the video screen, we've experienced that does pause it for some people. So if it seems like the Steve is no longer speaking, there's a good chance that you just need to re-click the screen and it will unpause it. And again, like Steve had mentioned, this will all be recorded and posted to the project website. So certainly if there's information that you missed or you just like to go through it again, we will have that up on the website in a couple days.
Thank you, Luke. We'll start with the presentation for the project, and as Luke had mentioned, he's the project engineer and manager from Kimley Horn and Associates, the consultant firm hired to work with the city on the feasibility report and design aspects of the project. And I'm Steve Dodge, the assistant city engineer, so I'm your city representative working on the project. This is for the city project number 2016-09F. So this is the Carleda Way street reconstruction, or Carleda Way area improvements. It involved both street reconstruction and utilities. And you're at a virtual open house for us to share the preliminary feasibility information. It's in draft form, and then get some feedback from the residents. We've general project overviews. We have Cahill Avenue, this is just north of 65th Street, and so Carleda Way is the main road coming through this area in neighborhood with 63rd Court and 64th Court being part of the project. The general scope of improvements is a full street reconstruction, and the water main is 1970s grade cast iron. So the water and sewer are proposed to be replaced along with the reconstruction of the street, which will involve driveway apron and our front yard in the boulevard disturbance and replacement. We initially looked at this project with the neighborhood in 2015. At that time, there was support for the project, and the project was put on hold because when the feasibility study was started, the flooding of 64th Court and the Cahill storm system was found, and there was not a easy resolution to that, and included additional funding sources in order to make any improvements to fix that. So what happened was that put the whole project on hold until resolution could come to that. in 2020 capital improvement plan, the city council with Public Works identified a funding source for the Cahill trunk drainage improvements, which allowed both these projects to move forward together, because the Cahill trunk drainage improvements have to do with the 64th court flooding that occurs. So these projects are proposed to move together now. So now the Carleda Way or 64th Court and Carleda Way were constructed in 1956. 63rd Street was added in 1971. I mentioned that there's cast iron water main and clay sewer that is proposed to be replaced. There was maintenance occurring in 1977 and 1990, and then miscellaneous patching and maintenance since then. The geotechnical investigation report by American Engineering Testing was done in 2015, and that showed that generally what we're showing here is that you have clay or silty and clay sands that are conducive to be frost susceptible, and that's why the geotechnical engineers recommend a full reconstruction in order to build a street that's going to last, long term and limit the amount of maintenance that the city and costs that the city has and residents for future structural improvement projects on the street. So the proposed street improvements are basically, right now there is a rolled stand-up bituminous curb, so we would just put a concrete stand-up B-style curb and gutter. We'd keep the street width the same. It's existing is around approximately 30 feet, and we'd keep it about that same width. We would add the sand subbase, so we have free draining soils to support the flexible bituminous or asphalt pavement that's installed. And then there's going to be some front yard restoration and driveway apron reconstruction. And currently there is no existing street light system for Carleda Way. I just want to note to the neighborhood that if you wanted street lights, you would need to petition for them, and that's a separate cost and assessment that's associated with that, and we are not proposing to do that. That was something the neighborhood would put a petition together to ask for. We did meet with public safety and in general with Carleda Way access and the tight corners that are on each end. Staff is proposing to put no parking on the inner loop side of Carleda, and just keep no parking on the outer side of Carleda, and keep the same street width. And what that does is that also provides the public safety access that they need in order to service the area if there is an emergency. The 63rd Court modification we're looking at is instead of this dead-end road that's paved and only one house uses it, and that would be or these two houses use it, mainly just this one house, and 3120, we would at this time just propose a bulb, which would be easier for street maintenance. I wouldn't have this dead-end plowing going on, and it makes for accessibility will still be there for the driveway entrances. There is a development connection that happened with sidewalk. Prairie States townhomes have they're updating their townhomes this year, and they have a path that of pedestrians that come this way regularly. And so they, in their proposed plans, have a sidewalk connection at the 63rd location, and we're just proposing to extend that sidewalk through our right-of-way, so that pedestrian path that's already being used is actually paved. The stormwater analysis for the area was the critical component that delayed the project in 2015, mainly for funding purposes, and for secondary purpose was design and trying to find a cost-effective and feasible solution. And the issue we had was 64th Court is in the blue line here. It was flooding, including Carleda Way. And the solution, and of course, the reason for this happening was the capacity of these storm pipes and going down towards Borer Pond that leave 64th Court, or they come off Cahill as part of the Cahill trunk system. And so what we're proposing to do, and we've worked out with the city council and the owners of these two empty lots down here, is propose a dry pond in one of the lots. There's 3 residents we need to work, or 3 property owners we're going to need to work with, including one property owner just east of the empty lot. And so the water off Cahill, when there's a major event, will be able to be collected before it gets to the court and into this ponding area, and it will leave through an existing storm system that's in place with a overflow control structure down here where the red circle in my hand is, and that will bring the proposed design for the area down from the blue all the way to the green. So it's going to drop in 64th Court. You'll see a 2.5 foot drop in the water level for the 100-year event with this proposed change. And this is going to also involve, now that we know the resolution, we can design the street system on Carleda Way and 64th Court to make sure this whole design accommodates the overflow conveyance of water, stormwater. So we're planning the project we're speaking of is 2016-13. That's the project with the green and blue. Green is the easement area we're looking at, and blue is the dry pond that'll be there, and when a large event occurs, the pond's expected to subside within a short period of time and then go dry in between rain events. The project number that this is related to is 2016-13. That's the Cahill Trunk Drainage Improvements. And we plan on moving the Carleda Way project, the street project, and the drainage improvement projects together. And construction isn't proposed until 2022. So going closer to the Carleda stormwater analysis, is we've identified a few areas where there's some localized drainage issues at 6285 and 6215 Carleda Way, and those are generally shown in the blue low areas in the mid block, and those are localized, and we think that through our analysis that the driveway up in this location and where Carleda, the D is that's a backfall driveway, so we can work with the resident and the neighbors in this area to make sure water doesn't come down Cahill and down anyone's backfall driveways. And two, if any water does get on Carleda, that we collect it in a storm system and route it properly through the street and storm system, not through people's driveways and yards. Down here on Carleda, just south of 63rd Street, we also are looking at putting a storm stub. This is so that in the future, if a private storm system want to be installed that connects to this public storm stub that we put out, then you could be able to do that and protect structures such as the garage or shed that's back here. The proposed street and utility improvements. Of course, this is a full reconstruction of the street, and we're looking at replacement of the sanitary sewer and the water main. We're proposed the 6-inch cast iron sanitary sewer would be replaced with 8-inch ductile iron new style water main, and the sanitary sewer 8-inch clay pipe in green would be replaced with an 8-inch PVC newer style pipe. And then because we're replacing all this due to the water main improvements, we would also be replacing services which will go up to the right of way and the property lines. And some of this work for the services are going to have to go into the properties because there's no D&U easement past the right of way line, and the right of way line is the dashed line that's labeled right here. We have curb stops and sanitary sewer connections that will need to be made outside of the curb line showing here. And this is just one area, but the whole street, both sides of the roads, this whole neighborhood project is going to have this similar situation. So we gave ourselves and you a year to work together on easement, permanent easement acquisitions, because we'd like to replace this water services all the way up to the property line per typical location and best management practices. And to do that, we would need a permanent easement on each lot, approximately 10 feet deep by 20 feet wide. But it will vary in some cases. Like in this case on lot 6180, the existing curb stop box is already further into the property rather than at the right of way. So we'd like to connect to that, bring the curb stop box back to the right of way line. So all property owners will be contacted with letters, and we will work out an individual plan for each property as we proceed with the design, considering that the council orders the project. The preliminary cost and funding for the project is, the roadway improvements are just over $1 million. The storm improvements for Carleda Way, not the Cahill trunk storm, is around $286,000. And those items will be funded through the PMP program and assessments. So the pavement management program and assessments. The water main improvements will cost around $500,000, and those will be funded through the water fund. The sanitary sewer improvements and services will be $381,000. Those will be funded through the sewer fund. So just to be clear, there are no assessments for water and sewer improvements. Those are proposed to be through the sewer and water utility funds. The total project cost is just over $2.2 million. Just want to remind people that the city assessment policy, we base our assessments on single family lots each pay the same assessment amount within the neighborhood. So it's per property. And then city-owned parcels and the Excel-owned parcel will be assessed as a non-single family. So the city-owned parcels 5, 6, and 7, and this little parcel 8 is Excel. Those would all be proposed assessments as non-single family, which pays a higher rate, and it's by front foot. The full reconstruction proposed assessed amount per policy is 35%. To the benefiting properties, and we have once we include the appraiser special benefit in what is called the assessment cap, we actually are only proposing 25% assessment because the will be the next slide. So generally the single family lots per policy calculated assessment is over $16,000. And then the non-single family lots, the ones in purple and yellow city lots, and the little number 8 are between $9,800 and $35,000. But what we did is we had an independent appraiser evaluate the neighborhood, and they provide a special benefit for the improvements, and the special benefit provided by the independent appraiser was $9,600. So we take the lower of the per policy amount and the independent appraiser's special benefit amount. So we take $9,600 is what we call the assessment cap, and that would be the proposed assessment for the street and storm improvements just on Carleda Way, not for the trunk improvements. That's a separate project being funded by PMP. The special the assessments would have a 10-year terms. So when we get to the assessment portion after, it'd be in 2022 when the project is supposed to be built. So it wouldn't be until 2023 or the end of 2022 is when you'd have to pay in full the $9,600 assessment. And in 2023, if you didn't pay in full, then it would go on a 10-year term with interest on your taxes with the county, which means you'd have to pay approximately half of this, $960 per year, or half of that would be $480 every 6 months plus interest for 10 years. And that interest is determined by the city's bonding rate plus 2%. The general project schedule is to receive the feasibility report on March 8th. So you may provide additional information and comments to me, Steve Dodge, the assistant city engineer, and it's in the letter that you received, my contact information. And basically, when the council receives the feasibility report, that's on consent agenda, and they schedule an improvement hearing. Because this meeting we're having today is just to inform you of the project, and basically we're looking for feedback from the residents in the neighborhood in order to incorporate that feedback into the feasibility report before council receives it on March 8th. Then the improvement hearing wouldn't happen until April 12th. So that's when council receives public comment at city council chambers at a regular meeting. And before that, we would hold another meeting, a virtual meeting just like this, to provide further information and gather comments from residents to include in the report, the memo that goes to council for the hearing. When we have the hearing, it's up to the council to order the project. If the project is ordered and moved forward, we then go into design phase and design and easement acquisition, which is, excuse me, we're going to will take about a year because of the utility easement areas that I noted we needed to obtain. We got to give ourselves about a year to go through that process along with design. So then we wouldn't bid the project until now 2022, so that's a year away in March. And then we would decide at that time, the city would receive the bids, and we decide at that time whether we're going to assess in the spring or in the fall. And the projected construction schedule is, around May, maybe June of 2022. So that's my general presentation for the Carleda Way area improvements, and the other project that's its sister project, the 2016-13 Cahill Trunk Drainage Improvements Pond. We wanted to make sure you're aware of that project now, because we were in negotiations with the affected property owners on the Cahill Trunk Drainage Improvement Project, but we wanted to make sure that it was fully presented with this project so that the whole neighborhood's aware of where we're at and where we're proposing to go. So I'll open it for questions at this time.
Yeah, so certainly, I know we only have one attendee, and Jeremy, you did ask a question in regards to the drainage and erosion issues at your driveway. I know Steve briefly spoke to this during the presentation, but we are aware, and we were made aware of the erosion issues actually back in 2015 as well. So we're looking at two things to kind of help improve that situation. One of which is when we reconstruct the storm sewer, we would look to extend storm sewer to the west of your driveway or upstream of that water flow coming down Carleda Way, so that we are able to capture that water in the storm sewer system before it has an opportunity to potentially go over the curb and go down your steep driveway. So we're planning to do that, as well as take a look at some gutter and driveway apron modifications to try to get the tip of the apron towards the road as much as possible as another safeguard to limit the stormwater that today may be going down your driveway. Those details are things, that's generally where we sit on that specific issue at this time. We would certainly be coordinating with you and working with you further once the project is ordered, like Steve was talking through after the public hearing. And that's when we get into final design, we would work out kind of those last details with you to address that issue the most feasible way we can.
And are there any others out there? So at this time, I'll just put my video back on, and if there are no further questions, Luke, I think we can just pause this for a few seconds, make sure Jeremy attending or anyone else has no further questions. Is there anything we missed, Luke, that may need to be added to the presentation?
Nope, I don't think so. I guess it might be good. We'll hang around for a couple minutes here. So Jeremy, if you do have anything else, just go ahead and shoot it in. to the feed.
Okay. Well, I think for the purpose of ending the video, I think we can do that now. There's been no further questions in last 30 seconds to a minute. So Luke, I want to thank the neighborhood and those that have participated in the virtual meeting. We'll post this on the city website at the in your letter that you receive for the project. It shows you how to surf to the Carleda website, the website location for the Carleda project. And I'm Steve Dodge, the Assistant City Engineer, and Luke Morns, the project manager's information is all in the letters that you receive. So we thank you for your time, and this will be posted on the city website within a couple days, along with the PDF version of the PowerPoint presentation. Thank you and have a great night.